So here are the screws, and you can see the plastic bushings, but we're going to replace those with ball bearings. And then there's the gear, the grease, you've got the rear shaft, and then one side of the gearbox. So those are the pieces that we're going to need to finish step 6. So I'm just going to put that together and we'll move on to step 7. Okay, so the oil cap is in, the 2 bearings are in. We just got to put in the shaft, and it spins nice, just like that. And then we just have to grease this gear, which we'll do now, and then we'll work on the other side of the gearbox. So for step 7, attaching the rear shaft, you can see that we're going to need one of those other shafts again, another gear, this gear, the 3 of the 1150 ball bearings, and then this little guy, which I've also got as a ball bearing as well, and of course this gear is that one. You've got the gearbox there, and then here we go. Here is the bearings, the spacer, the shaft, bearings, that other gear, all of the pieces that we're going to need to put this together and grease it up. So I'll go ahead and do that now. So there's one ball bearing in. Take the other one, put that in there. There's the second ball bearing in. Then we're going to grab the shaft, the spacer, oops, grab the shaft and the gear, the spacer, so that's there. And just going to put that in for a second there, just out of curiosity. So I mean, you can see it's going to run nice and smooth. So that's in place. Now, what we've got to do is put the other one in, and of course that's why the spacer's there, because that's going to run in behind it. So I got to do that now. So I'm just going to actually take that out again. Don't really need to have it in right now. Put that spacer back. Let's go grab this one, and then this little guy in there. That's got to go in there. So let's make sure that it does. There we go. That's in. And then we grab this one. We've got this spacer shaft that's going to go right there. And then of course the other 1150 goes on that side. There we go. That's in. That's going to go in there. So that now nicely spins because it's on the ball bearings. Stick that one back in because that's the one that's got the spacer. So you can see how that is away from the gear. So that's free to roll. That's free to roll. And then what we're going to do, you can see the bearings are in, the spacer's in, the bearing. What's left to do is we're going to grease it, because we don't need to grease the metal parts, because if this was on bushings, we would, but we're not doing that. We've replaced it with ball bearings. So now I just have to grease everything up, and then we'll work on the differential. So I'll just grease this part up now. A little bit there, turn it. And obviously this gear here, the reason you're greasing it up is we're going to be running the, it's for the pinion gear that's going to come off the motor, that's going to be running that gear. And then this one will attach to one of the other gears. Okay, so now we're all greased up, and then we can move on to step 8. So here is step 8, building the gearbox. So we're going to need to put together the differential, grease it all up, and then put the side pieces, the sides of the gearbox together. These are the parts and screws, etc., that we're going to need for this. I'm actually going to go ahead and build the gearbox. I'm not going to do it on camera because, in fact, I've already done this before, in that if you go to the Grasshopper build series that I do a full build of the gearbox. Because if you haven't noticed, this is the identical gearbox to the one that's on the Grasshopper. It's so cool, but it's the same gearbox as the Grasshopper. So I'm just going to go ahead and do this, and if you want to see the step-by-step, look for one of the parts of my build series that's on the gearbox for the Grasshopper. So there's step 8, and here is the finished gearbox. It is, as I said, identical to the Grasshopper. So that is finished. So now we can move on to step 9, which now is a little different to the Grasshopper because the Grasshopper has a pinion that's already attached, and it's a 380 motor. This is a 540, and you can see that we actually have to put the pinion gear on ourselves, and then there's a little strap that we need to do to tie up the motor wires. So we'll go ahead and do that. So for step 9, you can see that we're going to need to pull a few things together, which I've done. So here is this cap that the motor is going to be attached to. We've got the motor, we've got the strap, and here are the parts we're needing: the pinion gear, some screws, nuts, and then the grub screw. So we're just going to put that together, and then we can move on to the next step. So as you can see, I've attached that plastic part, the bushings, the nuts, and then attached it to the motor. So that part is complete. Now the next step is to use the nylon band to attach the wires and I guess keep them tight and out of the way. But I mean, when you look at the diagram and where the hole is, etc., these have to be bent back and forward. And to be honest, I'm not going to do it yet. I'm not sure that that's going to be needed. I've not done that with any other kit before. We're strapping wires to the motor directly. So I'm going to leave that out. If I find later on I need to do it, it won't be hard to put a nylon band around a motor and pull the tab. So we'll leave it for now. So I think we'll move on to step 10 and call that finished. So now we're moving on to step 10, which is attaching the motor to the gearbox. But there's a few things we're going to do as well. You'll notice here that there are some pieces that have to be attached to the axle. That's going to be for the bottom of each of the shocks. And we're also going to install the wheelie bar, which is going to attach to the back of the gearbox. So I've pulled together all of the screws that are going to be necessary for this step, and I've pulled together the parts. So the motor cover, there's the wheelie wheel, and then these are the pieces that are getting attached to the axle, and then that is the wheelie bar itself. So I'll just go ahead and attach those items, and we'll move to step 11. Okay, so you can see on this side, you put this on and I've gone ahead and done one of them. So you can see that that piece is now attached, and that's going to attach to the rear shock. So we're going to do the same for the other side. So first of all, we need to get this in, which I always find is easiest with this little guy, just shoving it right in there. And then we're just going to spin this on. It'll go on nice and tight. So there we go, that's that piece. And then you take one of those BB3 screws and the axle. So this part here is actually attaching to the axle. So we're gonna go on that way, and you can see that this piece is ribbed, so it's actually gonna go over the axle pieces. So that's actually nice and tight. And then we can screw that into the hole. So there's the other side. So now they're both on. So now let's get the wheelie bar done. So we're going to grab the wheelie bar, grab the little brass piece that's going to fit inside of that. Then we're going to grab the wheelie bar itself, and then we're going to use one of these BA3s to put that screw into the wheelie bar. And then, as you can see, this is actually A5, and again, just like with the grasshopper, it's actually like a plastic nut. So we're going to use that to attach to the other side of the wheelie bar. And of course it says, grab the handy dandy wrench and the screwdriver. Let's screw this in place. And there we have it. So now what we'll do is we'll attach the wheelie bar, and you can see the placement based on how that fits over the plastic piece that's there. So that's the proper placement for it. So now we're going to use, and it shows you it's a BB1 on one side and a BB2 on the other. So we'll use the BB1, which is the smaller guy, and we're going to put that one on this side. I won't go all the way. because I'll first get the other side in as well, which is the longer screw, so the BB2s. And there we go. So there is the wheelie bar on the gearbox. So now we've done all of that, and now we're just left with putting on the motor, and you can see that more or less that is the way that they're showing it going into the gearbox. So the two screws are going to be these two right here, holes that are going to be used for putting this in. So we're going to, and you can see it's a match to the gear inside. So what we're going to do is we're going to take one of these. Let's do it from the top. We're going to stick that in the side there, and we know that that is that one there. So let's start screwing that one in. And I can feel it grabbing. And then we'll take the other one and we'll start screwing that one in. Just make sure that it's tight all the way around. And there you have it. So now we have the finished gearbox ready to go to start the installation process. So let's move on to step 11.